and it's the same old United, and it's the same old ugly mugs here on the Last Goal Wins podcast, huh? The same ones. Nothing's changed. Play that music, son.
Howley.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Still got a misty camera, and it's 2022.
Hey, me too, huh? Me too. Look at that. Happy New Year, huh? What was that thing? I love that thing. Throw it at him. Look, let's not beat around the bush, huh? Let's get right into the football, especially because our favorite team to talk about.
Ronaldo watch never stops. Good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, it's Ronaldo and Ralph watch now, which
It's
I love this.
R&R.
Yeah, it's I like this. They really messed up. Amazon really messed up going for I think Arsenal this season, right?
Yeah, they
And
got good content at the start, but now
yeah, it's just minuscule. Now it's everything smooth sailing. It's kind of boring reality TV. Everything going well for them. This would have been terrific had they managed to land the cameras in the fucking United locker room. That would have been great. But
we would have seen another Ronaldo post-match meltdown. Maybe we would see Quadrado come back and say, "Nah, bro, don't worry about it. It's all right."
Let's quickly recap on the game before we get into the because a lot spilled out of this one, obviously. But Phil Jones makes his comeback. It's essentially a stalemate, not a stalemate. It's essentially a steamrolling of United for the first. How long you reckon? 20 minutes? 30 minutes?
Something like that. Yeah, good. I guess first half or first quarter of the first half.
Yeah. So a good portion of the first half where they were getting steamrolled. Felt like Wolves ran out of steam / out of ideas, towards the end of the first half. Shut up shop a little bit. Then United essentially went, or Ralph, I should say, went for just, I'm going to go out there and match them position for position and make a bit more of a stalemate, which I think made it better for them in terms of, outcome, I suppose, because it was looking there where, it could be hairy. And then right at the dead, well, not right at the dead, but towards the end, Martinho pops up, puts one away. And look, although there were some changes to sort of stop the bleeding, right? There wasn't anything to ever really change the game in United's favor. Was it 0 shots created or near enough to 0 shots created?
Something along those lines. Next to 0, I mean, they conceded to a team that's got 14 goals in 18 or so matches. Almost 2 points per goal they score, some bizarre number like that. So their return on goal mouth investment is through the roof. So for them to even concede a goal, and for a team that's Wolves aren't the Wolves that we know of from seasons past. They're not a dynamic counter-attacking team, as we can see, and new coach and stuff like that. You'd think United will nail them and really put them to the sword because it's not like they're good defensively. They've kept a lot of goals out, but it's not like the most elite defense or something that's impenetrable. So the fact that they've
still shipped 14 goals,
it's. I don't know. We can talk. I think the key takeaway from the United game is we can posture and come up with reasons or things that could fix the team. But we've got 2 different coaches in. One that's had them for a longer time. One that's on a temporary. 2 different ideologies. It's still the same result. So you have to kind of look at it and go, oh, it's the players or they just don't care. Or it's just flat out. Like it's not a matter of before it was like, oh, they'll turn it around. They're too good to fail. They'll find a way or Ralph will turn it around. But it doesn't look like that anymore. Now it's just straight up, will they ever turn it around? Or is this just going to be another, 5th or 6th place finish for them and that's it. That's as good as it gets. Maybe they spring a couple of results like they did against Arsenal. Every now and then against some teams that they're not fancy to go and get a result at, and that's about it. So like, what did you like? What
Well,
if Phil Jones is the best player? What else can you
yeah,
take away? The
yeah. So
guy's played in 2 years.
that's what I was gonna say. For in terms of a player by player performance, you know, um, Matic, Bisaka, you just said him then, Phil Jones. They were the best players, and really, if you were to boil it down to like who are the least exciting players in that lineup, I mean, you'd probably get to those three names pretty quickly. So
Oh,
that sort of shows you what's going on, right? Is like they're not making the most of what they've got, and they're not really playing sort of this expressive football that we expected Ralph to bring. And
mm,
because of that, the more sort of grafter type players are shining because they're having to graft. But when you look at the lineup, when you look at a midfield of Scott McTominay, Matic, Sancho, and Rashford, you're not that's not a grafters midfield combination, right? You're putting in two pairs of midfielders, right, that are on polar opposite ends of the spectrum of what they can do, right? So what you're telling me is they've got very clear defined roles that they need to go out and execute, right? From Matic, yeah, you can ask from him to be the defensive midfielder that holds or whatever. I don't know if you can ask McTominay to be the box to box guy alongside him, right? So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Asking them both to be these dynamic, pressers and back, they're sort of two-way midfielders. I
mm,
don't see them both being able to do that. So that's confusing to me. Then you look at the other midfielders, Sancho and Rashford. In the positions that they're played, where they're sort of left and right attacking midfielders, and they're asked to sort of roam from out wide into the
mm,
middle to cover that gap that's in between McTominay, Matic, and Cavani and Ronaldo, right? You're asking something of two players that are best used as wingers that isolate their fullback and take them on. Like you're
mm,
asking them to do so many, it's you're requiring from them expectations that they've never met before, right? So what I see is I feel like Ralph's come in and he's just sort of plopped his philosophy on top of the team. And I'm not saying the philosophy even in the sense of like getting the players to execute certain roles and patterns of play. It's literally just his philosophy in the formation that he likes to use, where it's that
mm,
4-2-2, where he doesn't actually, he's the only coach where he sets his formation in the way that he defends, right?
mm,
That's how they defend. They line up in rows of two and they press you in walls, right?
mm.
As you come through the down the field. So I don't know. I feel like he's got that massive gap there in the middle, and you've got four midfielders surrounding it: Rashford, Sancho, Matic, and McTominay, or McTominay, Matic. Which
Mm.
of those four players is going to step into that gap and create for Ronaldo and Cavani? I've never seen any of those four guys ever play that role in their life. If you're asking Ronaldo or Cavani to do it, fair enough. I didn't see it. Did you see it? I never saw it.
No.
I never saw Cavani or Ronaldo pick the ball up in that gap and look over their shoulder to see Sancho making a run or Rashford making a run. I never saw any of that. So what's I don't know what he's just kind of coming. He's like, I like playing this formation. Here we go. These players will roughly roundabout works. See how it goes. It feels as if he hasn't had any real training sessions with them to bet anything in. It's just drag and drop Ralph Ragnick style. That's it.
It's and the thing is, it's like, oh yeah, they can go buy someone, but who do you buy? And then Ralph is the interim manager, unless they've already confirmed that they're gonna make him permanent after this, or he's gonna continue in some sort of capacity. Who do you buy to fulfill his philosophy? Because then if you
Mm,
buy someone for his philosophy,
mm,
does he match the next guy's philosophy? Does he bet into the team? It seems like I think that this at the time the Ralph Ragnick move was praised because it was going to bring some sort of dynamism, and it's easy to say in hindsight that you might have been not the best move to hire him
mm.
now after seeing 5 or 6 games with him. But I feel like the whole move, if you really think about it, Ralph Ragnick as an interim manager, the guy is a system based manager where it requires a special level of talent and special level of
And it's
talent.
a strategy that requires a holistic implementation
Yeah, you
from
need it
from
top to
from
bottom.
from top to bottom. You know what I mean? It can't
Yeah,
just be, oh, we're just going to play in this formation and it'll click,
yeah,
or I'm just going to ask the fullbacks to do this and it'll click. I'll
yeah.
ask this guy to do that and it'll click. No, like the players that he's put in these positions aren't like the four midfielders in that lineup. they're all very much one-sided, one-dimensional players. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like
mm,
Rashford and Sancho, like their skill sets are roughly the same, right?
mm,
Matic and McTominay, yeah, you could probably split hairs between them, but at the end of the day, they're giving you roundabouts the same thing.
mm,
And none of these four players do anything to sort of provide that sort of final spark, that final ball to the two strikers that you've put up there, that you've planted two men up there. You're obviously saying, I'm confident that I'm going to create a lot. That's why I'm going to have two strikers up here to finish all the chances. But who's creating? Like it's just I don't get what he's gone for
mm,
with his formation. I don't
mm,
see any sort of fruition of the Ralph tactics that we were expecting. And
mm,
at the same time of all that, the scariest thing, if I was a Man United fan, I wouldn't really worry, not worry. I would be worried about the tactical issues and the performance issues. But what would worry me the most is that we've brought this Ralph Rangnick guy in who's just got this aura about him, sort of like that, like in that Bielsa tier, where he's like an
mm,
influencer amongst the managers, right? And he's got this sort
mm,
of status. You'd think that the last thing that would be an issue would be him losing the locker room. You'd think he'd walk in and all the players would magnetize to him. That's what you're hoping for. The last thing you want to hear is that he's losing the locker room already, and that we're already hearing rumors of this. The
mm,
football's not good. It doesn't look promising. We're not seeing any of the philosophy come through. And on top of all this, he's not really seemingly got that gravitas that you expected, where at the very least he'd have the players on side early on.
Yeah, he inherited a dead locker room, I think, to begin with. So the fact that nothing has changed in terms
I'm
of,
not,
I
I'm not
guess,
sure. I feel like we're cutting him a break. I feel like when you've got a player like Ronaldo in your locker room, you've got a talisman. You've got someone to set the standard. You've got someone you can point all the young players to. And especially when you're at a club like United, where there's already so much on the line for them, I feel like if
mm,
you can't get the players up for it, then there is a lacking skill set that you have. You know what I mean? Like
mm,
I think that at the end of it might not even be a skill set. It might just be that the bloke doesn't have the sort of aura and sort of intensity and feeling when he's in a room as we think he does because of all that we've assigned to him, because he's this savior of football, and he's the inventor
mm,
of some of the most impressive tactics and techniques.
mm,
um, you know what I
mm,
mean? Maybe it would have been a Conte would have had that sort of pull straight away. You know what I mean? Where there's
mm,
no bullshit here.
yeah,
This is an elite manager. Fall in line. Very simple. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Doesn't
yeah.
feel like that's what's happening at all.
The thing is on the Ronaldo point. I just look. This is the second club Ronaldo's gone where he's supposedly the talisman and the man that's gonna drag everyone up to his standard. But
Yeah.
it's the second club in a row where we've seen him capitulate, get frustrated, get toxic. What it looks like on the pitch, but on the in the dressing room, we can't say for sure. But what is on the pitch, what we're seeing in the last couple
Mm.
of games, we've seen a man that's protesting everything with the ref, arguing and remonstrating with his own players. I
Yeah.
just don't think look, whether he was ever inspirational is up for debate. We've never been in the locker rooms. A lot of people would probably say he was an inspiration or carried the
Yeah.
team. I think
Mm.
the fact is this guy is not a two-goal a game player anymore. So he can't really lift them with a performance and score 2 goals and say, all right, everyone catch up, come play like I play. So I think the fact that his powers are waning combined with Ragnick himself, not a lot of, I guess, I don't think there'd be anyone that's like, I guess, a Ragnick fan on the team there, and seeing how current footballers, I guess, behave towards managers and hierarchies. I
Mm.
think when you put all those things together, plus expectations, plus the season that's gone by with Ollie and stuff like that, and just the overall aura of the club since Ferguson has left, I think maybe we're cutting them a break, but I feel like I think there's we've been probably saying this for a little while now. I think everyone has. United needs some sort of refresh. You need to cut some of the stuff, cut loose some of the guys, some of the board, some of just complete hit ground zero reset because
Yeah.
you tried it under Moisey, didn't work. You tried it under Louis, didn't work. Ollie came in stabilized, or you tried it under Mourinho,
Yeah.
got you second place, but then everything kind of the wheels fell off altogether, and he isolated players in doing so. And then you had Ollie stabilize it, people kind of looked at it as like a reset and rebuild, wait for the market to kind of open up in terms of managerial options, and then we had Ollie for a few seasons, and he didn't look anything inspiring. We had a couple
No.
of results, and now this guy walks in, Ralph Ragnick, doesn't have the personnel, can't get them to buy in with whatever he has already in front of him. They're coming off a shitty start with Ollie, and a shit performance to send him off against Watford.
Yeah.
It's still continued. You've got now Ronaldo, the as we all know, a diva, for lack of a better term. The guy's now kicking out, remonstrating again, just being toxic.
Yep.
For lack of a better term. And now, what do we expect? Like, how? What are we supposed to, like? How can we even turn this around when you lay these things?
Look, I feel like they've sort of gone 1 foot in, 1 foot out with the rebuild, because you bring in a coach like Ralph Rangnick who needs long periods of time to bed in, and like we said, it's a holistic approach where it comes in and it's top to bottom, and it takes over the not only how the team plays, but how they select players and scout, and what their transfer policy is. So like there's that. So that's a long-term project perspective. But then you want to build the squad around Ronaldo, which is clearly a short-term what's it called? Goal, right? To build around.
Very nearsighted. They just didn't want him to go to Man City. That's it.
Exactly, right. So they're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out on each strategy. I feel like it would have been more aligned had they brought in Conte originally, right? Was because Conte is more of that manager who just can get a lot done with these guys. Maybe if you give him 1 or 2 more big signings that really fit what he's looking for, he could have turned this squad around a lot more, because he's sort of more that kind of coach that 1-2 seasons he's in, he's out, kind of Mourinho style. You know what I mean? He gets a team, gets them to buy in. They win a lot, but he wears them down. You know what I mean? That would have made sense. You've got it lines up with Ronaldo's timeline, 2 or 3 years there. It all makes sense. Now you've brought in Ralph, where potentially, like, if we go back at other teams, you're looking at them being their best in like 2-3 years. Ronaldo's already out of the team, so like all you've really done is made yourselves have to make a lot of big calls in the future, a lot of decisions to make. How much do you play Ronaldo? How much do you lean towards rebuilding? How much do you lean towards building up the youngsters? I feel like they've made a lot of haphazard decisions. But at the same time, I feel like they've made a lot of decisions that on the surface level have a lot of positive value and a lot of upside. And all of them have seemingly waned to the negative. Ronaldo, when it first happened, it was like, holy shit, they've if you look at Ollie's, how they performed last season, they finished second. You add Ronaldo to that, doesn't take you a whole lot of math to get to them finishing first. Or maybe winning an FA Cup or a Champions League or something, and building from there. So like, I don't know. I feel like they've kind of fumbled it a little bit, not committed wholeheartedly to one strategy, and it seemingly is at the cost of their short-term performances.
Yeah, you're right, and it is a giant gumbo soup of ideas and talents. Because when they bought Pogba, it's like, we'll build a team around Pogba. Never happened. Brought in Mourinho, he started playing him as a defensive midfielder. It all went sideways and left and right. It was just, like you said, it's an amalgamation of half-assed executions and incomplete projects.
Where is Pogba?
Pogba's injured, I think, at the moment. So he hasn't featured much. But I mean, what difference does he make? Unless
I don't know how he works.
Unless he becomes the player that Mourinho wished he became, and a deep-lying playmaker or ball-carrying player who can run vertically in a Ralph Ragnick system and be the last man running into the box and being that second playmaker. A miracle when you kind of list them all, the things.
Like where does he play? Like where would he have played today? Right, when he's got McTominay and Matic playing in a double pivot, and he's got Sancho and Rashford. He can't play either of the left attacking mid or right. He could probably play the left attacking mid, but it's just not the same sort of balance you get as with Rashford. Do you play him in the double pivot? I feel like he's not really, suited for that sort of role. So I feel like Ralph's not come in and gone, okay, this is my philosophy. These are the things my philosophy accomplishes. I press a lot of direct passes. I never go backwards. These are my key sort of the commandments of the Ralph philosophy, right? I don't think that necessarily means we have to use the same exact formation, right? Why I'm surprised he hasn't gone in and tried to sort of marry up the skill sets of the players a bit more with what he's looking for, and
Yeah.
tried to go that route instead of just like, I'm gonna drag and drop everything I used to do before, shoehorn players in, and then just hope that they're of the quality to get to the standard I need them.
Yeah, I don't know, but here's the thing, and this will probably be my last point with Ralph. He hasn't been a coach for 13 years, a head coach, like on the touchline. He's been in football, but he hasn't been on the touchline for 13 years. A lot of his time was setting up the I think his last job might have been either Schalke or Hoffenheim. He set them up, left, and then he worked on the Red Bull project from when they were probably in Div 3, Div 4, and then got to where they are today and left at some point. So is the guy showing rust? Is he getting caught out? Is he now more of a kind of string pulling guy rather than being the executor on the
Yeah,
touchline? Could be. Maybe that's what they're shaping up. They're like, look, take the brunt now, take the heat for us, Ralph. We'll give you the position of Dolph or whatever title he needs
it
in
does.
order to execute
Maybe
his.
they're making that gamble. Yeah, maybe they're making that gamble. Like, look,
Mm,
do what you can for these 6 months while you're coach. Find the guy that you want to hand it off to, right? And then move into the role where you're going to be more impactful for us, right?
mm,
And that's it. And we're just going to let the Ronaldo thing fizzle out as it's going, and that's
mm.
it. We made an investment. It's paid off in shirt sales probably already, so we could probably move on from it. Just like we'll move on from the game.
Hey.
City versus the Gunners. This was much more of a game of football than we expected it to be, or I expected it to be going into it. Not that
Mm.
Arsenal have been playing poorly, just that City have been playing so well,
Yeah, yeah. And their
right?
first game, the first run around, it was nowhere near
No,
close in terms of quality, absolute run around for Arsenal. But very much a game, very much a close game.
yeah, and just a marker of the progress that Arsenal have made this season. I think
Mm,
for
mm.
them to be able to not just be in the game, but really be, I think just
Punch for
for
punch.
yeah, just for winners if they'd won. I think it would have
Mm,
been, you would have been completely fine with them walking away with 3 points there. Um, but look, City at the same time, what I take away from this is they are really that team, because they
mm,
hung in a tough game and they brought up the 3 points right at the end. I mean,
mm,
like that, only the best teams can win games where they're not playing the best. So there's that. At the same time, and I think you touched on this before when we spoke about this. This game sort of had everything from the Gunners, the good and the bad. You know what I mean?
mhm,
They showed how good they can be, which is
mhm,
capable of putting goals past City and really giving them a fit. But at the
mhm,
same time, you had the bonehead move from Gabriel.
mm,
You had at times where the midfield was sort of just passive, absent. Really not a whole lot of danger, I'd say, from a striker or center forward in this game. You know,
mm,
which I think is actually a symptom of both teams and how they play. But really felt it from Arsenal, where not a whole lot of danger. You know what I mean? Like it really
mm.
was. They were hoping that they were going to create something from a couple of incisive, passes and link up play rather than a forward ever getting a one-on-one or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, the game really showed Arsenal's immaturity. I think the skill is there, but I think in terms of closing out a game or managing a game,
Game management, yeah,
yeah, that's what they missed. Because fair enough, a bit harsh to give Gabriel that first yellow for fucking around with the penalty spot.
yeah,
Look, it's a time old trick. We've seen it happen from in every level of football that you can think of. To get
yep,
a yellow card, I can justify it, but at the same time, I can't. I don't know. Like for me, it's a bit of a grey area in terms of would you give him a yellow, but the thing that really I didn't enjoy seeing from them, and maybe it's because Arteta's not on the sideline, he couldn't really wrangle or yell at them to calm it down, was just the general hubbub and bravado that they showed during
yeah,
the and just the whole macho, like, oh, we're gonna get them back, we're gonna tackle.
yeah,
And then Gabriel gets hyped up, he does a clumsy tackle. To get his second yellow. Jacques is kind of up and about, steaming across the pitch. Everyone's kind of amped up, and it takes him a little while to settle back down. And I
Yeah.
think it needs to show maybe that's just the youth, the
Yeah.
youth showing, and the
Yep.
young.
Youth, not coach being the coach not being on the sideline.
Yeah, like a lack of a proper leader. Because if you look at their captains throughout the game, you had Lacazette and Xhaka, and someone was the captain before Lacazette, but I'm blanking. I think, or
How'd they
maybe
go through three in a game?
I think it was because they substitute. I might have been two then, because maybe I'm forgetting. But I feel like they subbed someone off, and then Lacazette became the captain, and then
Someone
uh,
else was.
someone else took it. But regardless, Lacazette and Xhaka were the captains. First, you had Xhaka, who threw the armband and told the fans to fuck off all those years ago. Still
Yeah.
somehow gets to wear the band. Then
Yeah.
you have Lacazette,
Who's
the
arguably a
weakest man
couple
on the pitch.
months ago he was out of the team.
Yeah, Lacazette's the weakest man, the meekest man on the pitch, and then
Yeah.
before that, and then normally it's Aubameyang. That's it. Aubameyang's
Yeah.
normally the captain as well. So who out of those three is going to be a steady pair of hands to guide
Yeah.
a bunch of 23, 24-year-olds that are geeked because they could swing with the best of them, and
Yeah.
felt hard done by a penalty that was given. And
Yeah, let's
look,
talk about the calls actually. So there
yeah,
was some important decisions in this game.
mm,
I think that the takeaway was that not a whole lot of consistency. It felt like
mm,
I feel like you
mm,
can make your arguments for or against any of the calls. It's
mm,
just that it feels as though it was a different set of referees managing each of the decisions, and that's
mm,
kind of what frustrating. That's what is frustrating. Sorry
mm.
for players and for people watching is like, at least if you're going to call something one way, keep it consistent the whole way throughout, so we know what
Mm,
to expect. I think
mm,
that's the least we can ask for, and it sort of is upsetting that a game like this, as important as it was for the Gunners, and it was it could have been a real. I mean, it was a turning point, let's say, but it could have been more so for them. It is upsetting that it's sort of not ruined, but marred a little bit
sound.
by soured, by
Mm.
silly decisions. I'd say I wouldn't say I can't. I'm not going to go out and say if one should have been or shouldn't have been. They're just. I feel like the way that they took the decisions was only asking for controversy.
Yeah, I think that the decisions. I think that the Odegaard and Edison one. That's a line call. Like until we started seeing replays of the super close up. Like it's at that point, it's really a line ball. Depends on what you see. For me personally, it looked like Edison got the ball, and then cleared it and he went out. In another replay, it looks like it's such a close call. You can understand. Like I get VAR and it's supposed to remove this, but it's only humans behind the camera, and if they can't discern 100% a decision either way, benefit of the doubt, we won't. We'll stick with the on-field call because the guy saw it live. With the second pen with Bernardo Silva, yes, he pulled the shirt. Yes, he kind of did go down soft. But there's contact on the knee. Xhaka was sent left and he went right.
I think just by having a handful of his shirt, it's a pen.
And regardless if he's on his way down, like the shirt is literally 2 sizes bigger after pulling it. Like you can't give reason. You can't give a ref a reason, to put his whistle to the mouth and point to the spot. Like it's regardless of whether you think he's on the way down or he's on the way up, or there's contact on the leg. 2, he's got a handful of shirt when he was clearly sent for hot dogs down the Emirates. Like it's, I don't, but I think the problem was the officiating outside of the box for me personally, because there was a lot of niggly fouls that weren't called. Couple of clips at the heels or pulls at the jersey.
Yeah, he's letting a lot go.
Yeah, he was letting some go and then he'd draw a line randomly. Then he'd get some go and then draw a line. It was just inconsistent. But overall, great game from both teams. Really kind of sets the tone for what they've accomplished so far and how they look to be traveling for the rest of the year. But hopefully Arsenal can learn something from this. And then when I guess the situation gets dicey, they're able to prevail and with clearer heads and calmer minds.
I guess the only thing I wanted to cover on this game that I feel like we've not glossed over, but I suppose the biggest improvement I'd like to see I've seen from this Gunners team in this game is the ability to sort of stay within their game plan the full 90 minutes. You know what I mean? Which I feel like that was never the case before. Now, it may have been because of the poor performances that, Arteta's more willing to pull the strings and change things up, and that was probably what was causing some confusion. But at the same time, it goes to show that the players that are stepping up into the roles they're asked of, and they're not forced to go to plan B, C, D. You know what I mean? That's
Mm,
why I feel like the decision that Arteta made to commit and gamble on the young fellas is probably better than any of the moves he's made tactically
mm,
over the course of the last 6 to 8 months. You know what I mean? I feel
mm,
like his commitment to betting the young fellas has really, it's the reason why they're so good right now. It's the
mm,
only
mm,
reason. You know what I mean?
mm,
He's got Burn Leno there that he could have, gone back to, taking the easy way out, go back to the standard keeper. He has Obama Yang there who could have crammed into the lineup and put up with his bullshit to keep the big name on the field. He's got
mhm,
Lacazette there who he could have shoehorned a few more times in for some more minutes before he, as he was coming back from injuries and yada, yada, yada. But I think it's good that Arteta has shown that he can sort of be resilient and commit. This is my philosophy. This is what I'm going to do. This is my game plan. I'm going to go for it. We haven't seen that from an Arsenal manager since Arsene Wenger.
no,
I think even when you had, Emery and all those sorts of guys in there, they weren't ever willing to sort of just shut out the noise and do what they want to do. And I think that's
mm,
a marked improvement in comparison to last year, where I just feel like they were willing to like roll over so much, and that translated
mm,
to the players out there. They were playing gutlessly. You would never
mm,
see them have this much emotion in the game last season,
mm, mm.
regardless of what the scoreline was.
100%, yeah, 100%. I just think that the players have matured as well, the youngsters, but also
Yeah.
he's probably given them the confidence to kick on, and a lot of them had, like the likes of Saka and stuff, and now Emil Smith Rowe, they've had some buzz around them, and now they've kind of taken upon themselves to bring the challenge. But also they've made some good signings. Tomiyasu, Ben White's also
Ramsdale.
looked well at some. Ramsdale as well, something with the guy as well. Lakonga. Tavares, all these little youngsters are kind of contributing to the team in a way. So it's good to see, he's walked through hell to come out
Yeah,
on the side looking better for it. So props to manager of the month.
for sure, for sure. Liverpool versus Chelsea, big game, great game.
Blockbuster.
Probably the
Great.
best single half of football this season.
Mm,
Maybe as
mm,
as a game, there's probably been better spectacles, but as a half,
mm,
this first half is probably the best you'll
mm.
see in
Yeah,
the Premier League this year.
yeah.
Goals, great defensive plays, a lot of midfield battles, keepers being on top of their form. Like it really was a game of everything. What do you see? What you kind of take? What are your takeaways?
Well, I think both teams kind of looked a bit tired at some points and a little unfocused, as you could see. Kind of Trevor's mistake leading to Sane's goal. Um,
Yep,
the haphazard clearance for Pulisic's goal. The Kovacic one, look, a million times those balls pop out. One in
pause.
10 will actually pop out and actually hit sweetly and go in. So
Yeah,
a bit of here and there, but look, credit to young Kelleher who came in for Liverpool. We've seen him come up a few times as more of a replacement keeper, or
yeah,
when the fixtures are pretty one sided, he'll come out and rest for cover for Allison while he rests. But look, great performance from him. He kept it alive. I thought they wasn't the best from both teams. I think that the 2-2 is a fair result because usually when Liverpool runs out to a 2-0 lead, it's especially early on because they've shown a trend over the season where they start strong and they just run away with it and play it out.
mm, yep,
Of course, the opposition isn't the same every week or the same level as Chelsea. However, Chelsea aren't the same Chelsea as the one that played them in that fantastic game earlier this season at Anfield. No
yeah,
wingers. Lukaku's been, I guess, banned for that game
yeah,
internally. The centre back, you had Chalobah starting at centre back. They've had COVID issues on both sides, as well. No Klopp on the sideline either. So
mm,
there's all these things that kind of can kind of point to why some moments of the game were a little sloppy. But overall, I think the real winner here is City. They got the job done. They got the points they needed to streak even further ahead. These guys, both Liverpool and Chelsea are They're going through a weird phase. So you've got,
Yes.
Liverpool is going to lose Salah, Sane, and Keita for
Sane.
African.
They're going to sign
Sane.
him and then they're going to send him off.
And then Sadio Mane. There we go.
Yeah.
And they have him going. Salah and Naby Keita,
Yep.
all going
Yep.
to the African Cup of Nations. Huge
My
players.
tip.
I looked at the Cameroon squad. He wasn't in. I think he retired from international football, from memory,
Interesting.
till at some point last season.
This game made me realize. Well, I wouldn't say this game. I mean, it's obvious that they're going to miss, in my opinion, the best player in the world at the moment in Mohamed
Oh, for
Salah.
sure. Mate,
And
the
then
guy's got 16 goals in the league.
yeah, and he's that first goal, or that first goal, was it the first goal he scored? That was ridiculous, dude. He just gave the eyes to the far post and just like lifted it over him. That was terrific. That was terrific. But you know what I mean? Like, it's obvious if you lose the best player in the world and then, one of the next 5 or 6 best players in Mane, then you're obviously going to be impacted. But this game was kind of like, damn, it's really going to hurt. Because in this sort of game against this sort of team, they're going to really struggle to find goals, I think. You know what I mean? Because those guys create so much danger and so much distraction and so much peril for defenders that it opens stuff up for Diego. Is it Diego or Diogo? Diogo Jota, right? That bloke doesn't score that many headers without those sort of wingers out there creating havoc on the wing, drawing double teams and so on. You get him marked by 2 center backs. He's got no chance of winning headers. He's got 4 this season. I don't think he's going to get another 4 goals from headers without those 2 players providing the assist or creating impact on the field and creating space for him. So they're going to be much more impacted than I think. And I think the same thing about Chelsea. I mean, Mendy was ridiculous in this
game. Kept him in for a lot of the game.
You know what I mean? So they're going to go through some issues at the moment with how they're going to balance the Lukaku issue and all that, which we'll get to later. But this game made me realize, like, these 2 teams, it's not the best we've seen from them, but everything we saw today that was great are from players that aren't going to be here till February.
100%. They're going to be out for a good chunk of the month, a good chunk of the season. But also, speaking of Chelsea, yes, they've got the Lukaku drama. That's fine. No, I do not want to update my laptop. Also, the depth. They have no depth at the moment, Chelsea. They're really running razor thin. So I think that this January is going to be important for them, just to bring in a couple of loanees or make a couple of savvy signings, just to bolster again the wing-back positions, because you've got Chilwell out for the season. James seems to be, my opinion on it is that he keeps getting rushed back early, because it feels like he gets injured, comes back a little bit earlier, injures again, same cycle repeats. I think they're not giving him enough time, and there is no replacement for him on that right side. Like, you could put Aspi or something like that, but it's not the same effect.
There's no like for like replacement. You can make shift. You can go to a back 3 and play. One of the, you can play, what's his name, Hudson Odoi there or something, and put a less mobile center back in behind to cover the space. There's things that can make shift solutions, but the reality is when they're playing that 3-back formation and the wing backs are what's his name, Chilwell and Reece James, it's a much more dangerous pair of defensive fullbacks than any other combination that you can put together. It's like those guys. I mean, the first quarter of this season, they were outperforming Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold. You know what I mean? They were scoring. So Chilwell had like 4 games in a row where he had a goal. You know what I mean? Like, they were playing ridiculous, and they've just not been able to stay on the field. And I think they're not the kind of player where you can kind of even go out and just get someone that can do the same thing. Like, no matter what, it's gonna always be a patchwork job, because they're sort of so unique that it's hard to bring a guy in, unless you would probably go out and get Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they just need to bolster a little bit. Maybe it's a couple loans. Maybe it's maybe getting Dino on loan, which they're rumored to do this window. So look, it's a tricky time, especially for both teams. And considering when you look at City, the team they're chasing, minimal African Cup or Nations impact. I think Mahrez is the only guy that's affected. Going or Ziyech is on Chelsea's team, but I don't think he was
Wait, didn't
picked.
you said were you talking about Chelsea not being
No,
affected?
no,
Who are we
City.
talking about?
I'm talking
Oh,
about City.
City. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think Ziyech was picked for the Morocco team anyway, so they'll have him. But City have Mahrez going out, which is the
Yeah.
only one we can think of. They haven't
Yeah, it
been
is.
affected by COVID. They haven't had any games missed. Their teams stayed relatively healthy, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I didn't jinx them. So
And
everything
they've got
kind
a
of,
gap. I think they've got enough of a buffer where I don't
it's a
think
big buffer.
if
It's
yeah,
big.
even if they're hit by COVID or any sort of that sort of impact where their squad depth is challenged, I don't think it's gonna ever be the reason why they lost the title. I think it'll have to be some sort of combination of issues coming through, to be honest. They're just playing too consistently. I think it's theirs to lose at this point, and it's gonna take a couple of things coming together for them to drop it. It'd have to be like a COVID impact. It'd have to be like Liverpool for some reason not dropping a single point and winning maximum points the whole way through the AFCON tournament. Chelsea doing the same, suddenly the fourth title challenger emerges and starts pulling points away from them. Like a lot has to go wrong, I think, for City. Not because the gap is so big; it's only 8 points or something like that. It's just that the consistency from them is a level of consistency we're not seeing across any of the other teams. So, like, who's gonna do it? Who's gonna win enough games in the remainder of the calendar to really, really put the pressure on them? I'm not sure
100%.
just yet. Quick little A-League recap since the one lone game snuck across the COVID radar.
Just before the new year too.
Yep, Adelaide give an absolute thumping to Phoenix.
4-0.
But yeah, 4-0, massive thumping. But at the same time, coming up with some issues to deal with off the
Yes.
back of this game.
Yep. So you had Halloran. I think it might have been on the day of or just the day after the game, with immediate effect, even going over to Korea to play for an unknown club. That transfer has been confirmed, and then I think it was earlier today or maybe yesterday. Stefan Malk, the talisman almost in midfield, announced that he's moving to a J League club as well. Two huge losses in terms of personnel and talent.
Yep.
For a club like Adelaide, where they're an OG club, but not one of the big teams. They obviously gets dwarfed in terms of attraction by City and Victory and Sydney
Sydney.
FC and Western Wanderers and all that type of stuff. They're not a huge market team. So the question then comes: they've already kind of looked thin in certain. They were playing Malk at number 10, and Halloran was important for them out wide. But they've got a few injuries in the team. The squad is
Yep.
a little thin. The results haven't been overall impressive, but they've had some hot moments where they beat City, they thumped Phoenix, but also some less than desirable outcomes and some losses and where they should have won, considering the level of the opponent. So they've come at a weird crossroads to their season. I guess
Yeah.
not their own doing either. The players
No.
just decided, there's more money to make elsewhere. I want a new challenge. So
Yeah.
how do you think is the best approach for them? Do they go look outside, or do they kind of lean in on or try to pick some of the fruit that they've already had in the academy in terms of
I don't
young?
know, man. I don't like. The way I see it is like when I see those two players leave, because they were one of those teams where they were playing well and they were winning some games, but they were losing some really close ones that could have gone either way. But it always felt like the performances were good enough where it just needs to click, and suddenly they're in the top four. Whereas now they're losing some talismanic players. It feels like it might be too much to sort of sum out this season. They might need to just reshuffle and rebuild and be happy with the sort of mid-table finish, just because they've already been sort of not skating by, but like they've already been sort of hovering at their relatively at their ceiling of performance level of how good they can be, and they weren't getting results. Now it's going to be hard for them to recreate those performances with the lack of personnel. I don't see how they're going to get the results through the rest of the season. You've got teams like Perth Glory, Western Sydney, Wellington Phoenix, all below them at the moment in the table, who arguably could, turn a leaf and suddenly start putting performances together. And then above them, you've got people like Sydney FC, Melbourne City, MacArthur and Melbourne Victory, all very unlikely to drop the ball throughout the rest of the season. I think they're going to they're probably going to finish seventh, which is where they are now. I don't think they're going to be content with that. What they can do, probably not a whole lot. I reckon they're going to be one of the teams this season that have a bit of a pause. I reckon,
bit of a stagnation.
Plus, with all the poked holes that we're getting through the COVID postponements, I just don't. It's going to be hard for these teams that have a lot of figuring out to do to really get some stuff going this season, because it's too choppy with the calendar.
That is true.
Let's wrap it up on the Lukaku drama. Bit of goss, all right? But we have to cover it because it's one of the probably most I would say the swiftest scandals I've ever seen sort of snowball into an issue. I mean, it felt like this innocuous interview went out where he's saying things that raise a few eyebrows, but players say dumb shit all the time. But boy, did it get out of control.
Yeah, this kind of snowballed really, really quickly into a big headache for Lukaku.
Give us a recap on it real quick.
So let's look at the timeline. So Lukaku has an interview come out. He loves his time at Inter. Said he never wanted to leave. Wasn't his decision. The club, Inter needed the money, and they sold him to raise funds. He loves it. He eventually wants to come back at some point and potentially retire there. Has some weird tidbits about moving to Real and Bayern and Barca. That they're bigger moves than Chelsea. They're iconic clubs.
Yeah.
Does a mention of Lautaro. Says don't bother coming here. I'll come to you. Weird stuff like that. So then that comes out. There's a bit of social media hype as there is. There's clips and quotes and everything floating around. Inter Ultras. Inter Ultras come out, put out a banner in Milan saying, that they only appreciate those who were there while it was raining, not wanting sunshine, stuff like that. Maybe
yeah, you got it. Like it's more about it's like rain. The gist is there. Yes, they're like, look, you were here. Why'd you leave? All right, come on. It was getting a little difficult. You turned tail and ran, which in hindsight, I don't think is really the case. I think it wasn't looking too good. They were like maybe thinking of selling the club. Like it was a bit,
look, it's
cut and dry.
It's 50-50. The coach that he loved them so much has gone, left. The club was, again, could have been sold, blah, blah, blah. It's the truth is somewhere in the middle, as lies with most things. But hey, that's football for you. So then this comes out. The game against Liverpool's rolling around. Rumors come out saying that Tuchel's going to leave him out. Didn't really appreciate anything he had to say, really.
Nope.
So then game rolls around. He's actually, they've dealt with it, but he's not going to play. He's out, not in the squad. And then today, we finally get the bow on top of this steaming pile of shit. A 5-minute video on all of Chelsea's social media platforms of Lukaku apologizing.
And the thumbnail is like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect PR. It's the greatest cleanup I've ever seen. I've seen some messy stuff being spilt on the Woolwood tiles, but this was immaculate.
Look, it's completely covered in marketing, newfangled, just like just a layer of lacquer of like what's it called, commercialism on it, right? Yeah. But at the same time, he really did need to come out and say something.
Yeah, he needed to apologize.
It was looking stupid, like bro.
It was like a man reminiscing about his ex with the wife he just married. Like it's legit 1 week later, and he's just like, "Yeah, my ex."
It wasn't one quote. It wasn't one quote that they were like, "Oh,
it's not one out of context quote." It's not like, "Oh, my time at Inter is the best time of my life." It was, "Yeah, I miss Inter. I wish I could go back. There's bigger clubs out there that I can move."
I didn't want to leave.
It's not just one quote. It's a smorgasbord, a charcuterie board, if you will, of poorly worded phrases or just not well thought out statements from Lukaku. But
he stepped in it.
He rolled around in it. But in case you missed it, we watched it for you, and we've got some key takeaways for you. So basically, the in-house interviewer from
Are you talking
Chelsea,
about this is for the apology
the
video?
5 minute video, the apology video. Yes, exactly, the apology video. In case you missed it or couldn't be asked, we did it for you. So first off, the guy from Chelsea that's doing the interview, that's leading the charge, roasted him. There was no words minced.
Yeah.
He literally just goes, so you know how you said that Inter was, or that there's a bigger club out there. No
Yeah.
words, no mincing about, just straight to the thing. So you know how
Yeah.
you said this. Absolutely, like, look, it's probably all prepared questions, and Lukaku had
100%. Yeah, yeah. But his
you know,
delivery was like, it was just like, this
one.
is your quote. What do you
What
think
do you have
about
to
that?
say for yourself? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like a
yeah,
parent talking to a child,
yeah.
reprimanding them. What do you have to say for yourself?
Crazy.
It was nuts. But look, all in the name of PR and groveling, I say.
Yeah.
Lukaku said, I should have been clearer in my messaging. How more clear? What clarity do I need? Like, you had nothing positive to say about Chelsea. You said your time there was difficult. You're battling against COVID and recovery. It's not
He was
gone the way.
upset about the system that was
Yeah,
being
it's like, it's
played.
not my system. Like, it's how clear. What clarity do you need on your messaging? I don't quite understand what he
Like
meant by
at
that.
the very least, if you don't want to, like, okay, I didn't mean this by the system thing, or I didn't
Mm,
mean this. Okay, but conceptually, we can take away from it that you don't like it here, right? Like
yeah.
that's obvious, right? Because you
Mm,
said that in 10 different ways.
mm,
I may have misunderstood exactly each one of the phrases because of a language barrier, or like you said, he was recovering from COVID,
mm,
so he's
mm.
delirious. But at the very least, the essence of how you feel, we surely got. Like that was
We got the
100% conveyed.
feel, we got the
Yeah,
vibe of what you were
yeah,
trying to say, buddy.
yeah,
We didn't miss the messaging. Maybe you used the wrong words, but we definitely got you were winking at us and telling us
yeah.
something.
You
Well,
got us.
yeah, you got us. But essentially, he comes back saying he's recovering, from COVID, working really hard to get back into the team. He's that old chestnut when a player leaves young and then comes back. I had unfinished business. I
Yep,
want to do my best, blah, blah, blah. He wants to fulfill his contract. He signed here for 5 years for a reason. He wants to be successful for all 5 years. Does a does a real little, he does a little sidestep of the Real Madrid Bayern, and there's a bigger move. He's like, he does that old thing, and I hate it when players do this because it's so obviously cliche and just pure PR fan speak, where it's just like, oh, as a kid, I dreamed and I was wearing the Chelsea kit or whatever to that effect. And he just
yeah,
says everyone was wearing Brow and Bayern kits, and as a kid, they all wanted to move to that. I came here when I was 18 because Chelsea is a big club. Blah, 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 blah. Just
yeah.
absolutely
Waffles
blowing,
around it. Yeah, a bit of sophistry.
just pure verbal diarrhea from his mouth. He doesn't even really answer for that question. He doesn't really provide an answer for that question. So he kind of goes, yeah, kind of gives you that story and then kind of just walks around and doesn't really acknowledge it. It's just, look, for Chelsea's sake, they've buried the hatchet. He's
Yeah,
publicly been shamed. They've sent him to the
yeah,
gallows. The crowds
yeah,
have booed him.
yeah.
They've laughed. Now they're like, look, all right, let's get back onto matters at hand.
I'm curious though. Is this like, are we going to look back on it and be like, this was where you lost control? It was never being able to brought back onto the tracks, or is it just going to be a blip on the radar? He comes back on, he starts banging in goals, later on in the year, and we're all good about it. I'm just curious, like, is he the kind of guy where this will throw him off enough where it'll affect him on the pitch? I
I
don't really. From what we saw with the United days, I'm not really convinced that he's like this sort of strong-minded individual who's gonna stroll through this no problem. I think this is gonna impact him.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this has probably impacted Tuchel because this guy's like, I'm thinking in Tuchel's mind, he probably hasn't heard any discontent or grumblings about the system, and he's like, bro, I picked this guy. He wants to come in and play for my team. He's my main striker, and he says he doesn't like it, and he hasn't told me anything about it. I've dropped it's just a weird thing to deal with as a coach
Yeah,
of a
yeah,
team that's been relatively, or very recent as last season. Champions League winners are a very solid, cohesive bunch. You have even Werner, who's not even complaining, and that guy's been dogged by everyone and
yeah.
has become
Literally,
almost a meme. But he's
yeah,
out there grafting,
yeah.
still going. Still hadn't had to deal with many issues with that work. But the guy that,
the new guy on the team, you're the Champions League winning side that you've added him to your squad.
You're the crown. You're the jewel in the crown, sorry.
And
he's cooking up.
They paid a bit, it wasn't a free signing either, where there was, where it was like a nice budget deal where it's like, he hates it here, but who cares? We got a good price for him. They paid out the nose for him. Like I'm curious to see what the fallout will be outside of the media frenzy. Like that's sort of not come and gone, but like the height of that's already hit. What's it going to translate to on the field? Is it going to fire him up or is it going to sway him away? I probably think it's going to sway him away, but we'll see how it goes. Find out next week. Follow us on the socials at Last Goal Wins Pod on Twitter, at Last Goal Wins Pod _ on Instagram, at Last Goal Wins Podcast on Facebook. Catch the replay on Spotify, on YouTube. All glory be to Bozza. Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening. Very nice. Alrighty, I'm going to leave